in a single-sex school, the boys get an opportunity to fill all the roles that exist within a school. I know certainly at the Australian school, our prefects, our leaders, the young ladies often would outshine the boys, whereas here at BBC, the boys, they have the opportunity to fill those roles themselves, and they are beautiful, articulate, intelligent young men. I'm very proud that they will be the ones who are leading Australia at that time.
You're listening to Around the School Table, hosted by me, Steve Davis, and proudly powered by Zuno Suite. We'll be bringing together the many voices shaping primary and secondary education across Australia, from principals and teachers to education thought leaders and system innovators. Whether you're in the classroom, the staff room, or the boardroom, this is your podcast to be informed, inspired, and connected. Today on Around the School Table, we're joined by Andre Casson, Headmaster of Brisbane Boys College since 2022. Now, a former science teacher with global experience from the UK to Shanghai, Andre leads with a focus on active learning, on strong relationships, and shaping gentlemen of honour. In other words, good blokes who embrace vulnerability, accountability, and inclusivity. In this chat we're about to have, he'll be sharing insights on boys' education, from designing movement-friendly classrooms to embedding consent and respectful relationships from prep, and the power of a 6-to-1 positive to negative feedback ratio for real behavioural change. So if you're an educator passionate about all boys learning and holistic development, I think Andre's perspective is going to be both practical and inspiring. Andre, welcome to Around the School Table.
Steve, thank you very much. It's my great pleasure to be here.
I love quotes from the world of science, and one that I think you're a living embodiment of is Louis Pasteur's quote, "Chance favours the prepared mind." And I think we'll shine a light on that as we go through our chat. But you started as a science teacher, and the leadership part of your career began almost by accident overseas. You were stepping into Dulwich College, Shanghai, as a science teacher. You quickly became the deputy head. Now, that is not the traditional pathway. So looking back, how did that unexpected opportunity and that quote even shape how you think about preparation, leadership, and luck?
Look, I do love that quote from Louis Pasteur, and you're right. That old adage: the harder you work, the luckier you tend to be. So the journey to Dulwich was an interesting one. I was the head of science at Aquinas College in Perth, and I saw myself remaining there the whole time. An opportunity came along to go across to China. My wife's a Chinese medicine practitioner. She used to do some time over there, and we thought, well, I'll take my long service leave and we'll spend a lovely time enjoying myself. Dulwich came along. The school expanded exponentially, and as a result, I had the opportunity to step from being the science teacher to within my first term as the deputy head of the secondary school, which is an amazing opportunity.
This just reminds me of a conversation I just had. I hope it's not too cheeky, but if you were writing your autobiography, what many, particularly American writers, will say is, yeah, I had this success and what I suggest to do is go overseas, and they minimize the factor of either inheritance or often luck in the story. It gets downplayed. But this really was an opportunity that I think luck takes some responsibility for, but you were able to walk through that door that it had presented in front of you. Is that fair?
And look, I think that is fairness. It's the kind of opportunities that I talk about with our boys here at BBC. There is an element of luck that comes with everything that we do in life. But if you're not prepared to seize that opportunity, then you're not going to go to that success. I'm a cricket tragic, I'm afraid, and there's a great quote from Richie Benaud that says, "Being Australian captain is 90% luck and 10% skill, but don't dare try it without the 10%." And so you've got to be ready. Those opportunities come, and I think that's in any walk of life. If you've done the training, if you put the effort in,
then those lucky moments, they seem to come a little bit more often than you'd expect. Yes, it's a both and. It's not an either or.
Correct.
We do have, well, if we do have teachers listening who are curious about international teaching, I just wonder, what did those global experiences you have teach you about pedagogy, about culture, even about yourself?
I love the fact that you've couched that question in those three areas. In terms of pedagogy, in terms of teaching and learning, to be able to address students with a variety of different backgrounds meant you need to be agile and ready to pivot on a dime. I learnt so much from working in the UK system, working in the International Baccalaureate. I learnt so many things about how to connect with the students that I'm so fortunate to have in my care. Personally, it had an opportunity to expand my horizons. I am, I should say, the eldest of seven from Perth. I'm pretty sure I could have stayed there my entire life. I do love Western Australia, although Brisbane's beautiful also. But it was a chance to go and see the world and see different cultures, not from a theoretical, but from a realistic perspective. The last piece that you said about the impact on students, and this is something about which I'm really passionate. We live in a crazy world at the moment, and a lot of that craziness comes from that nationalistic sense where my way is the only way. And what I learnt internationally is you had students from all over the world. And not only did they get an opportunity to learn about different cultures, they got to spend time with people from different cultures, appreciate who they are. Appreciation lent to move to wisdom, and wisdom moved to friendship. If we're friends with these people, we know where they're coming from, then we're less likely to engage in some of the terrible things that are happening in our world. So I think international education has a real responsibility in that space.
I know we touched on that preparation and luck factor before, but for an educator for whom an opportunity does arise, how can they make sure they get the most out of it? Is there a mindset that you think upon retrospect had you in the right frame of mind for seizing the opportunity?
Look, I agree with you. I think the number one thing is that you are blessed. You are called and had a great opportunity to educate students. I think it's a great blessing and a great privilege. So the first thing and the really important mindset is that I am here, maybe in the most exotic location in the world, but I am here to give these young men and women the best education that I can. That's the first and most important. The second is that once you're there, embrace the opportunities that setting affords itself. I was in Singapore for 10 years. Most of Southeast Asia was only a very short flight away. So to have the opportunity to experience that, I think is really important. And the last one, you just need to have very much a growth mindset. You need to realize that there are so many different opportunities, experiences, even if it comes to trying that food from the cart on the side of the road. Just having that growth mindset, that'll certainly set you up for success if you are considering that as a journey beyond the shores of Australia.
I'm glad you mentioned those things, in particular the second factor there about making use of your proximity to places. In my work, I've often, all through my life, travelled to places, and I have not done that well, Andre. I've gone in, done the work, and left. And I look back on my life, and there's one bit of advice I'll be giving my daughters, is that when these things happen, make time to go to an art gallery, to take a tour, to do that. It's the one main regret that I have in my life, and I thank you for that wisdom that you shared as a way of making the most of these locations.
Well, thank you, and great advice for your daughters.
Let's turn to boys particularly. In previous conversations, you've described pedagogy as active, acknowledging boys often need space and motion to learn. So with that in mind, how do you design learning environments that cater to this, and where do you think traditional classrooms are missing the mark?
I'm not saying that there is no place for sitting behind desks and listening to the teacher talk, because that's part of the discipline of education, and it's something that our boys are going to experience going forward in life. But we at BBC understand that boys do tend to learn a little bit differently, and there's lots of aspects to that. But one of the ones that is important, they are active learners. So what we've tried to do is to have spaces in our classrooms where boys can collaborate. We try to afford opportunities for students to actually go out into breakout spaces beyond the classroom. Probably my best science lesson is when I taught my year eight boys. I still teach a class here at BBC. I taught my year eight boys about the states of matter. We went out into the outside amphitheatre and said, boys, you're now all atoms. We bring them all close together. They run a bump against each other. Then they go a bit further apart when they're a liquid. And I say, right, boys, just run around the whole amphitheatre. Now you're gases. So that's really important. So what we try and do as part of our master plan vision is to understand that our boys need to have that active aspect to what they're doing. And we make sure that the classrooms have that opportunity. Likewise, in our curriculum design, we traditionally at schools, physical education finishes at year 10. We still have physical education for our boys in year 11 and year 12. It's more of a recreational activity as opposed to an assessed PDHPE curriculum. But every boy, every week, getting out, being active and being involved. The last piece of that is that we have has a strong co-curricular tradition, and we want our young men to be involved in activities outside the classroom when they can get out, get a bit of a sweat up, and learn those important skills that are going to help them for later in life.
Maintaining PE is a really interesting thing, because with the right teachers, with the right sort of material that you're doing, there's so much we learn from each other about ourselves and each other through the lens of sport that slips under the radar, I think. Do you agree?
100%. So you've hit the nail on the head. It's not about the skill development, although that's part of it. It's not about the scoreboard. It's about those relationships that you establish, the collaborations that you make, the understanding that it is only a game and someone wins and someone loses. Teamwork, these are all so crucial. I spend a lot of time talking about we've got to stop trying to out AI or the robots or machine learning. My father's a doctor, and going to a doctor, you go in, you do tests, he looks at those tests, makes a diagnosis, and then works out what treatment plan. AI will do that much better than my dad ever will. But when I get bad news, if I've got cancer or a heart problem, I want to be able to talk to a human. I want to be able to talk to my dad. And so one of the things we try and do here at BBC is to work on those humanistic skills. We have these wonderful tools that we should embrace appropriately, but what we need to do is provide our boys with these humanistic skills that are going to keep them one step ahead of the robots.
That's really interesting, because it leads me to an area where I wanted to spend some focus with you, and that's on relationships, because relationships matter, especially with boys. And it's come up in conversation that building relationships with students is central to your philosophy. What does that look like in practice at BBC? And how do you coach staff to build authentic, respectful rapport?
You mentioned the word authentic there, and relationships, and they are actually two of the important pillars of a boys-centered pedagogical framework. Boys very quickly will work out if you are being disingenuous. So there is no point me, as I mentioned, I'm from Western Australia, we're a big rugby school. So there's no point me coming along to Brisbane Boys College and pretend that I'm an expert on rugby. And the boys love it when I'm watching the first 15 to take the moment to explain, oh, no, sir, that's this, that's that. They enjoy that. But I'm still engaged with them in my authentic way. That is so important. The relationships are absolutely crucial. One of our 5 values is that of community. The BBC boys call it the brotherhood, but because we want to be inclusive of our male and our female members of our community, we call it our community. So these things are absolutely crucial. We embed that in what we do in a very, very intentional way. So when we talk about our BBC pedagogical framework and we're talking about how we educate our boys, one of the central themes there is relationships. We bring people in, we talk with the staff about how do you create those relationships. It is by showing interest beyond the classroom. It's perhaps coaching a team. I had the great pleasure of coaching the 11 C's cricket team in 2024 because my son was playing and he said, look, Dad, the boys want you to coach. I said, look, no worries. A chance for the boys to see me outside of the traditional role of a headmaster. So we model these practices. We make it very explicit in our interview processes that this is what we're trying to do. And once you're in and being inducted to the college, part of our PD is looking at this pedagogical framework and making sure that our staff have got those skills so they can connect with the magnificent young men that come to here to the college.
Wouldn't the right people be people with a natural affinity for relationship?
I agree with you entirely, but I also believe that we can always become better at do. And this sounds like the most obvious statement that you're going to ever hear on your podcast, but schools are places of learning. And if they're places of learning, it doesn't just mean the boys that are wearing the boater hats and the stripy blazers. It also means that we as the educators, and whether it's a teacher or a member of our corporate team, we still need to learn as well. So you can always learn something new to put that in your back pocket for those moments. We do spend a lot of time trying to get the right people, but when we get those right people, we try and make them as brilliant as they possibly can be.
I'm very curious now because we mentioned having female members of staff within the community, and that's piqued my curiosity. You've worked in both co-ed schools. Now you're leading an all-boys school. Having experienced both of those settings, what's the biggest misconception people tend to have about boys' education, and what's the most powerful thing an all-boys school can do differently?
Look, I think I think social media and broad media have got a little bit to do with this. Is this idea that all boys schools is all rah 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 and the phrase we hear a lot, that toxic masculinity. In my experience as a student and as a teacher, I spent, apart from my time internationally, I've spent only worked in single sex boys schools. Is that is not pervasive at all. These young men are good human beings, and they do want to go out and make a positive difference in the world. So I think that's the biggest misconception. The wonderful things, not just here at BBC, but the other schools that we're involved with, they're doing remarkable things to try and support these young men to be, and you used the phrase before, to be good blokes. There's nothing more important. The boys here from BBC will go and be the leaders of tomorrow, so they better be good men. And that's something that I take very, very personally. So I think that's the big misconception. The big difference is that in a single-sex school, the boys get an opportunity to fill all the roles that exist within a school. And in different schools, in different settings, I hate to say it, we do end up having some aspects that kind of end up on gender lines. I know certainly at the Australian school, for our prefects, our leaders, the young ladies often would outshine the boys. They were far more articulate, probably had developed great EQ, and when they presented themselves, that they looked so much better. Whereas here at BBC, obviously we don't have any girls filling those. So the boys, they have the opportunity to fill those roles themselves, and they are beautiful, articulate, intelligent young men that are really, well, look, I'm going to be an old man very, very soon. I'm very proud that they will be the ones who are leading Australia at that time.
Still juggling forms the old-fashioned way? Say hello to Student Forms by Zuno. You can create, collect and manage all your student forms online in one simple, secure platform. Save time, stay organised and quick access everything you need anytime. Visit zuno.com.au and see how Student Forms by Zuno can work for your school.
On that leadership, I think this is a really interesting illustration. There was a moment when a student wanted to bring a same-sex partner to an event, and one of your captains dismissed the controversy with, well, that's a dumb question. Says quite a bit about student leadership, school culture. How do you get that kind of maturity and inclusiveness?
There's a few ways. There is the intentional way. We have intentionally embraced it's called the Keeping Safe Child Protection Curriculum, which talks about relationships, talks about consent, talks about even the most prosaic things as my changing body. But so there's this intentionality. Our staff are trained, and each week our students from prep all the way through year 12 engage with this curriculum, and that is important. The second aspect is that we as the staff members, and I use the word staff members deliberately, I have the same expectation of our corporate staff as I do of our teaching staff to set a positive and correct example, be it their physical presence in the college, their social media presence, or when our students, those special moments you run into a teacher off campus, and it's always a little bit strange. But it is important that they set the right example so our boys know what's expected. And the last piece, which is, I think, the gel, the glue that brings this all together, you need to establish that culture. You have those conversations with the boys. When things go wrong, you address it through the lens of, this is not what we're about. We want to be the best at getting better. This is not what we're about as a gentleman of honour, which is what our founder, Barney Rudd, said. He said he wanted to produce gentlemen of honour. And by creating that culture, while still having the intentionality and the right example of the people within the school, you get that success. It goes wrong from time to time. It does. But it's not about falling. It's about what you do when you fall that's important.
On Gentlemen of Honour, which I like that phrase, actually. It really, it hits me deeply as something classic. Because my bent that I think Australia is losing a little bit of grip on is the importance of decency as a core value. I think it would help focus so much of our political and social debate, but that's for a different conversation. What I find intriguing about Gentlemen of Honour is we have a culture, particularly in the male realm, that prizes strength. Strength is what it's all about, the tough. And yet Gentlemen of Honour, I think, although it includes that, seems to bundle with it vulnerability, accountability, forgiveness even. Can you just unpack that a little bit to how you describe, believe, and see lived this high standard?
Look, Steve, I think you've encapsulated that beautifully. I mentioned that community was one of our values. Our first value is honour, and decency, respect, forgiveness. These are the sentiments and the actions that we want to see coming from our BBC students. And I think probably the best example I can give, and I won't mention his name to embarrass him, but my first year at the college, there was a young man, and people who know BBC will work out who this is, but I won't embarrass him more broadly. But he was captain of the rugby team and captain of the boats. We're a very traditional, strong rowing school, probably our strongest sport, and rugby is a big thing. So if you were going to be a big man on campus, those are the two jobs that you want. At several occasions, he was also our captain of that boarding house. On several occasions, when he spoke to his brothers, his mates, or the community, he would break down and cry. and he had complete comfort with that. The number one boy at the school, the boy that everyone wanted to be, who's now gone on to a professional rugby career, has played for the Junior Wallabies. He was so comfortable and understood that vulnerability, decency meant that it was okay to feel that way. And it set an example for that young man that didn't feel comfortable in being that way. So I think that's at the essence, and probably my proudest story from my 4 years here at BBC. That young man, he's destined for amazing things. You wouldn't want to be in his way if he's going to tackle you, Steve. He's an absolutely enormous individual, but he understood honour is at the centre of what we do, and honour means that I'm vulnerable, I care, I show my emotions. It was a beautiful time.
What a liberated human being, and a full human being who hasn't discounted his full humanness into the generic and the basic elements, but enabled the full nuance of what it is to be human, to be communicated. That's a very powerful story. That should be something that should set, I think, everyone's hearts on fire of saying, yeah, I want more of that, please.
Thank you.
And now you talked about that has impacted on you, but there's some other things about you I want to know. You used to be a swimmer yourself. BBC has a proud heritage. I mean, Kieran Perkins, the Purple Wiggle, not Jeff, but John Pearce. You've got science background, sport, leadership, a brother who played Test cricket. It seems that discipline and drive have been present in you from your early life. Is that true? And do you think you've been drawing on that in your work, particularly here at BBC?
Look, Steve, there's no doubt. We are the sum of the parts that make up our journey through life. And by the great grace of God, I was born, number one, in a beautiful family, to have 6 brothers and sisters, to have parents that valued who I was and valued my brothers and sisters, really taught me to be who I am. People laugh because I'm year 7 that, well, you've probably been a headmaster your whole life. I'm not sure about that, but throughout life I've realised that the importance of being focused, being driven, but above all else, don't forget that human element. Don't forget those relationships. Don't try and drive your way forward to the detriment of other people. And it's something that has really, it struck me through life. And the really great and successful people, they are driven, they are passionate, they are, I'm going to do this. But most of them, I think, are very, very decent. You mentioned Kieran. He is a lovely, lovely man. I text him every year at the GPS swimming. He still holds the 400-metre record from 1991, I think it is. And I just text him saying, yeah, it's still yours, mate. And he's lovely and engaged with the college and a lovely man.
And also, I must say, there's one thing that I'm most envious about your life is I wish I could go to your family Christmas to play cricket. It would be fantastic.
It certainly is that. My greatest claim to fame in cricket is that Bo, my brother, he played for a different club, and I was playing for Subiaco Floreat. He was playing for Scarborough. He did get me out for a duck, but I got him out for one. And my theory is that he got a number 10 batsman for Subiaco Floreat out, but I got the cricketer out.
Fantastic. Final stop on our chat. I have held this back. I'm really fascinated by it. Is this balancing of positive and negative feedback that's core to the school? I mentioned it in the introduction, this 6-to-1 ratio, the idea that for every one piece of negative feedback, there should be at least 6 positive interactions at BBC with your students. And it's not just about managing mood. there's behavioural change over time. There are things that students learn, and probably staff too. Can you give us a cook's tour, if you like, of this 6-to-1 ratio and how the rubber hits the road, how it actually plays out in daily life?
The research in this area, we all grow up with this negativity bias. From all the way back when we were cavemen, we knew that we don't eat the red flower because the red flower stings our lips and it makes us feel unwell. We learned that very quickly. Whereas the positive things, they take a little bit longer to catch. And, there's lots of research. I was fortunate to have a sabbatical a few years ago and spent some time at Harvard Business School. And they talked about the significance of positive feedback for the people that you work with. And the ratio they were saying, it was 5.8, but as a teacher, I'm just rounding that up to 6 because you can't have a 0.8 of a compliment. So what that means is that you need to find moments where those people with which you interact are doing great things. And it's, in my view, and I say this at BBC, I tell this to the staff, I catch greatness every single day. I might be about to go give a speech and something will happen on the way to that speech where I'll go, that's what I'm going to talk about. So if you are open to the wonder and awe that exists, you have authentic opportunities to go and put that in place. So what we ask as our staff in their interaction with the students that you try and catch them doing the right thing. Unfortunately, things go wrong sometimes and we have pastoral care notes, but we also have the opportunity to record positives. I ring parents a lot. And the first thing I have to say to them is everything's okay because the headmaster rings, they assume things have gone wrong.
Yes.
But then I'll say, I just caught Callan doing this great thing and I wanted you to know because it made me proud and I think you should know. And that's what we try and do as much as we can.
That's really interesting. That's an arm's length away from Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He said the most effective way to praise someone, especially a kid, is not to say it to them directly, but say it so they overhear you saying it. This is like the next arm's length because, that was real then. That wasn't just done for me. It must land.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I hope so.
Just moving forward, what has that led to over time? Do you see the fruits of that? What do they look like?
We'll get back to that statement before about gentlemen of honour, good men, good blokes in the Australian vernacular. By intentionally setting up this ecosystem where we are trying to catch the boys doing the right things, why we're trying to give them opportunities to thrive. Our phrase for our strategic plan is there's more than one way to thrive at BBC. No matter who you are, no matter what you love, you can find that at BBC and you can thrive at it. If we do that intentionally, it becomes who we are as staff, and hopefully that next extension is it becomes who the boys are, and we also establish that culture. What I see is a school that is driving forward. Academic results, winning cricket matches, making great performances, these are all outcomes, but if you get that culture right, that whole idea of striving to be the best you can, working hard to achieve those goals, that comes. And with humility, I see that happening at BBC every day. I'm moved to tears myself often. My son finished year 12 last year, and I promised him I wouldn't cry because he gets a bit embarrassed when I do. But he's left now, so all bets are off.
Last very small comment on this is with this 6-to-1, there is cynicism within some business circles of the praise sandwich. Give them something good, land what you need to criticise, give something bad, and people get to see it coming. How do we catch the boys doing something good and convey that in a way that is authentic? Is that just from the heart, the motivation it comes from? Do some staff find themselves saying, "Oh, that felt a bit plastic"?
What you said there, which is beautiful, Steve. The authenticity piece is crucial. If this is not something that you feel comfortable doing, or in the moment it's not quite right, And to your point, if I was to go to a group of boys and see a lad who just picked up some rubbish and put it in the bin, saying, "Well done, mate," that's not likely to hit the mark. You've got to find those moments, but they happen all the time. I will leave this office when we finish speaking, and I promise you there will be at least a dozen opportunities where I walk from here to my next lesson where I can say to a boy, and it might come later on, to say, I saw that. It might be a quiet moment. I know the boys, so I know how to say things. I mean, you can say them in jest as well. They love that also.
Being seen, it's something important to all of us. And here, the motivation for seeing is to look for where we can build people up. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Andre Casson, thank you very much for joining me around the school table.
Steve, it's been a delight. I wish you well for the year ahead, and take care.